It's time for Pure Performance.
Get your stopwatches ready. It's time for Pure Performance with Andy Grabner and Brian Wilson. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Pure Performance. My name is Brian Wilson, and as always, Andy Grabner. How you doing, Andy?
I'm pretty good, actually. Well, as always. But today, very good because it's amazing. It's February 21st, and I think we have 70 degrees outside, and I'm in Boston, which is unusual. And but snow is coming in tomorrow, so everything back to normal tomorrow. But today is an exceptional day.
Yes, that time of year where everything's up and down. It's just insane. It's been a while since we've done this, so it's apologies, not apologies, but I guess sorry in advance if we're just not on the ball today because it's been a while. A lot of stuff's been going on since we've last recorded one of these. Right, we had Perform. I went to my first and probably last ever Mardi Gras down in New Orleans. That was really insane. And you've been quite busy yourself, Andy, right?
Yeah, I mean, especially after Perform, I think there was a lot of catch-up work to do on regular business. And one thing that happened in the last 2 weeks, which now actually kind of brings me over to our guest today, is we've been starting to build more and more integrations with some of the tool vendors out there in the DevOps space. And I've been involved with some of these conversations and enabling our partners, and some of the partners also came to us. And Brian, if you're all right with me going ahead and introducing our speaker, our guest today.
Well, I first want to just say the work you've been doing lately has been amazing. And I know it's not all you, but you've been spearheading it and helping it go. So congrats to that. It's some amazing stuff. But yes, please go ahead and this leads perfectly. What a great segue, Andy. I don't know how you managed to pull that off.
So today on the show is it's interesting. Steve Burton, and for people that don't know Steve Burton, we have had the pleasure over the last couple of years, but more on the competitive side. And now we are partners, and it's great because in the end, even though back in the days when we were competitors with Dynatrace and App Dynamics, now we're partners. And in all these years, I believe we all try to help people out there that are trying to build better software faster. And I think, Steve, without further ado, I think you are hopefully still with us, and I don't want to steal too much thunder, but I think you can probably introduce yourself better than I can. So fill us in.
Thanks for inviting me. Great to be here. Again, Steve Burton. I work for a company called Harness. And so we, again, focus on continuous delivery. But again, a similar path to Andy and Brian in terms of performance monitoring. That's what I've been doing for a long time. And it's great to be a partner. And as you guys kind of said, I think over the years, the customers benefited from the competition and vendors kind of innovating to kind of create better monitoring technology. So, yeah, it's good to talk about how things have changed and what the future is for monitoring and development teams.
Yeah, and I think change is a big thing, obviously, right? We all see the change out there. I mean, you and Brian and I, and we've listened to a lot of companies that are going through whatever you want to call it, digital transformation, cloud transformation, going cloud native, doing CI/CD, continuous delivery. And these terms have been out there for a while. And Steve, I just read some of your blog posts on Harness.io. You said, you've been following the whole DevOps community. I think your first DevOps days was back in 2011. So it's been a while, but still, it seems a lot of companies are still struggling to get into how do we do CI, how do we do CD, how do we do this all correctly. And it seems a lot of people are spending a lot of time in figuring this out while they shouldn't do it. Because I think over the years in the community, a lot of best practices came out. A lot of tool vendors came out that actually help and support, whether it's open source tools or commercial tools. And I think there's also one thing that you guys are addressing now with Harness is kind of ease the pain and kind of I think you can probably put it even better, and we just chatted about this. But why focus on building something the hard way if you can focus on what's really important, which is the business, and let us help you with the other stuff around it? Is it right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I mean, we've all attended those DevOps events, and they're always sold out, and there's a lot of great content. And I think perhaps in the early days when you talked about DevOps, everyone was like, automation, let's build stuff, let's build frameworks, let's do test automation, let's automate our builds, let's automate how we deploy. And kind of what we've seen, especially the last year, is a lot of companies did that. And they did it through dedicating 3 to 5 people to basically script a lot of the frameworks and the automation. And what's challenging with that is technology is changing every day. So like if you mention Kubernetes, like 2 years ago, people would be like, what's that? Or even Docker. Whereas now if you're not talking about Kubernetes, people think you're mad. And so like I have no doubt 6 months from now, there'll be some new technology. And whenever that changes, those scripts don't script themselves. And it's kind of like going back to performance monitoring in like 2005, right? Or even beyond that, like the early days of Wiley or Precise, where you had to almost script the instrumentation and tell it like, hey, I've got an app, go and instrument these points. Whereas today, all of that's completely automated by the tools and the vendors. Like if you're a customer and you're writing instrumentation, like that's a lot of effort and time that you don't need to do because tools already do that for you. Mm-hmm. So yeah, where there's a lot of complexity we see is continuous delivery, right? There's not been a lot of options out there. And so just like you guys have automated a lot of the monitoring with a single agent and discovery of all of the entities you want to monitor, we're trying to do the same in the continuous delivery world, where we make it super simple for a customer to pick up their app and push it through their deployment pipelines into production.
I think you raise an interesting point about the whole building your own tools, right? For a long time, especially in the earlier days of all this, there were no existing solutions out there. So everyone had to build their own. It was also a badge of pride to say we built our own pipeline, or we built our own monitoring solution, or we built our own auto scaling solution, whatever it was, because there really weren't too many that existed. Nowadays, though, if you're moving into these realms and you're going to start building your own, not only do you face the challenges that you talked about with, having to maintain the code, having to get the people full-time dedicated to creating these frameworks and maintaining them, you're also now putting yourself behind. If you're just starting your transformation now, you're already behind a lot of other companies and a lot of your competition, right? So if you're going to then take the time to build your own framework, you're putting yourself even further behind. Whereas we're at the time now, we're at a point in time now where a lot of this stuff has already been created. There are solutions out there where you can say, hey, you know what? I'm just going to go grab that solution, use that, and then get on, as you said, with putting code, putting features, improving our product out there, and not spend the time worrying about the tooling.
Yeah, the lead time, right? It takes you a year to get a 1.0, then you got to maintain it. And it's not like open source is free either. Like, sure, you can download it, but then I need 5 or 6 engineers full time on it for a year, and then I've got to then maintain it. So like you can easily spend $1 million on open source to build whatever you want to build. Mm-hmm. But like, is time to market going to kill you before cost does? Because I would argue a lot of companies today, their biggest threat is their competition delivering things faster. And same in our industry, right? Same in monitoring. If you come out with the next killer feature, customers are going to love it. They're going to buy it. All your competitors are trying to catch up as soon as possible. And I kind of use the analogy. It's kind of like us building Salesforce.com. Like, why would we build a CRM system? Or like, why would we build a version control system? Like, those things exist, they're mature, and I can go and pay a subscription and use it when I need it. Right. So yeah, I think there's a happy balance. And a lot of commercial tools already use open source anyway. So like a lot of the best frameworks, like you'll see in commercial tools. So I think it's when does it make sense, and when should you kind of move away from being in the tools business when your core business is not selling tools. It might be like video games, or it might be retail or shopping or travel. That's really where I think you move the needle. Digital transformation is not about building tools. It's about making your business better. It's about acquiring more customers and hitting making the bottom line and top line kind of better than your competition.
Mm-hmm. No, but I wanna raise a question then. Aren't we then? It seems right now. I mean, I love the DevOps days, but it seems we are glorifying everyone that can get on stage and show their next GitHub project with the next library that they built. And, I mean, is this something that we did in the last couple of years because we had to, because simply there were no tool vendors out there that kind of took it over? And is maybe the time is over now to glorify all these heroes? Or do we still need these heroes? Because in the end, it's great if we say we have all the tool vendors and we can focus on building just the business benefits, the business logic on top and into our products. But I think we still need to make sure that people understand that having the basic skills of scripting and understanding what's actually going on, this is still important. Mm-hmm. On the other side, I think we probably need to go away a little bit from glorifying everyone that has just announced their latest cool GitHub project and solving the same problem the 500th time now.
I totally agree. In fact, I'd love to go to a DevOps event where someone stands on the stage and says, we implemented this bunch of technology and this was the business impact. And this is how long it took. This is how much it cost. And this is where our business is today. And I think a key point is a lot of these discussions lack the business context. Like, we talk about it and we talk about ideas and going fast, but understanding the real business impact of agility and change and tooling and all these GitHub projects, I think there's a complete void. And there needs to be more transparency into what the business reasons are and what the value or the results are. And so, absolutely. And we need to stop focusing on the nuts and bolts and what's the big picture we're all trying to achieve. And I think observability is a new word for monitoring, and that whole argument, let's not why aren't we talking about business, how fast you can move, or user experience, or conversion rates, or how we track business KPIs from our applications. Why are we still talking about drilling down and asking it makes no sense.
Yeah, I think too that going along with both of what you're saying is where the whole process has matured so much, and to your point, Andy, having someone talk about this is the way we did the same thing everyone else did, that's what people have been doing for a bunch of years now, is kind of becoming an old story. And sure, there's always some inspiration, but it should be a lot more about this is how we got to our goal. And our goal was to make our business more successful. And we got there as quick and cheap as possible, right? That's a great story. You had to do it the hard way in the old days, and in the old days, we're talking about a year, even a few months ago, right? But you had to do it the hard way in the past because that was the only way, right? And I just think the goal, just like the goal for DevOps and all this stuff, shouldn't be hey, we want to get to the cloud and we want to have microservices and containers. That should not be what your goal of your company is. The goal of your company is to put out a better product faster, cheaper, more reliably. And whatever those new tools that might help you get there, whether it be moving to the cloud or moving to containers, microservices, whatever those are going to facilitate that, you leverage. But the point isn't to be in a container. My goal is not to run my business in a container. My goal is to be more efficient and profitable as a company. Same thing with all these monitoring and tooling stories. And I agree with you, Steve. It would be great to see a little quick story. Hey, we leverage these things. It cost us this amount of money and it had this much impact on our business. And it only took us, 3 weeks to get up and running on it or whatever. That's a great story. That's an inspiring new model business story because we're already past those exploratory days of trying to figure it out.
Yeah. So, Steve, then from a continuous delivery perspective, these are obviously the use cases that people hopefully not much longer try to build themselves. But what are the key aspects of continuous delivery that you guys see with your customers that people try to do with a platform like Harness? Fill us in. I think that something like Canary Releases, but I'm sure there's other stuff too. What are the things that you make so easy for your customers?
Yeah, sure. So we define CD as artifact forward. So continuous integration is about taking code and creating artifacts. We see continuous delivery about taking those artifacts into production. And I think a lot of people have an idea of continuous delivery as we need to provision infrastructure, we deploy a few scripts, and we're done. And I mean, you can do that. You can drop files on production servers and cross your fingers. I think where we've seen more of the complexity is how do you verify those deployments were successful? So what was the performance impact? What was the errors, the security impact you had with the deployments? How do you deploy? Like, what is your strategy for deployment? Is it just a straight swap where you just basically provision the new version right over the old version and cross your fingers? Or do you do canary deployments where you phase the release, you have verification gates, and you minimize the business impact? And so, I mean, there's lots of others, rolling deployments, blue-green. And so a lot of complexity you might not think about. Also security as well. Like one surprise maybe is a lot of the conversations we've had with customers, security has actually been the reason they can't do continuous delivery. Like, how do you manage secrets? What is the audit trails? Where's the role-based access control, the authorization? Everyone wants to give developers the freedom to deploy, but how you control what they can do and the audit behind it is still very, very difficult to build. And you might not think of that, right? If you're going to build your own CD platform, security might be the last thing you think about, or you might think of it towards the end of building the framework or the platform. And so that's the complexity we see. Continuous delivery is almost like a jigsaw puzzle of many different pieces. And then I guess where we see customers struggling the most is once the deployment has occurred, how quickly can they roll back? And what's interesting is there's two different views. Do you roll back or do you roll forward? And I think there's a perception that if you do continuous delivery, you must roll forward and you must fix things as soon as possible. And that doesn't always work, right? You deploy to production, you might have an outage or a production issue. Like rolling forward or fixing it really, really quickly is really difficult. And so sometimes you have to roll back. And again, it comes down to, do you have the visibility? Can you understand how your application's behaving? And if you don't have monitoring or APM or the right visibility, like, how do you know whether to roll forward or roll back? Because when production's screaming and the business is like asking you why things failing, like every single minute that ticks by, like, you lose money, whether you like it or you don't like it.
Yeah. I mean, Canary Releases obviously are a great way to kind of fix that problem, isn't it? Because basically you put the canary out there and you observe it, but you still have your quote-unquote regular production servers running. And then if you have, as you said earlier, I think you call it build verification or validation, or what do you call it?
We call it continuous verification. I can give you a real customer example. So Bill.com, like huge retailer online, they used to do blue-green deployments where they would just flip over the new version from the old version. And so they'd have the existing production environment, and they'd have a staging environment. Internal employees would test against it, and then they would just flip that over into production. And that's almost like 100% exposure rate, because if the new version fails, all the customers get impacted.
Right.
And so what they wanted to do was then move to a canary where instead of flipping the switch, they would just deploy to 5% of traffic, and they'd just sit back and watch and check logs and look at monitoring to make sure everything was good. And then they'd deploy to 20%. And then 50%, and then gradually until they're 100%. So canaries are almost as fashionable as microservices these days when it comes to deployment. But it's a really good way to minimize the business impact during a deployment.
Now, let me ask you a question, Steve, about the Canary deployments. What do you say, and this has nothing to do necessarily with your role in your business, but a lot of people probably think, oh, Canary deployments are great, but we're not Amazon, right? People kind of really just associate that with these really large-scale deployment operations. But obviously, this whole concept is picking up steam. How would you address that pushback to somebody?
It has nothing to do with the underlying technology. You have a business. Do you want to expose a new release to 100% of your users, or do you want to test it on a small percentage of your users? Make sure it's successful, and then deploy it to the rest of your users and customers. And it's kind of like there's obviously a link to A/B testing and feature flags and things like that. But if you want to test innovation, test it on a small sample size, and then if it goes well, then incrementally roll it out. It's not just about cloud native architectures or those types of customers like Netflix or Google or Facebook. If your business is online, and most customers' businesses are these days, it's about managing risk. And you manage risk and less bad things happen. Or when bad things do happen, they don't impact as many customers or users as it would have happened in the past.
Right.
But obviously I think it sounds easier, right? Let's do Canary Releases. And you said you don't have to be an Amazon or a Netflix, but still, obviously the architects that build the software, you have to architect correctly so that you can do things like only pointing certain traffic to the Canary, because it just doesn't work with any type of application that has not been built with Canary Releases in mind. Or am I mistaken here?
Yeah, so what we do is we have native integration with load balancers. So if you've got F5 or you're using Amazon ELB, we kind of hook into the load balancers. And so again, standard APIs allow us to communicate and direct traffic to clusters and things like that. So I think APIs exist. How you stitch together those APIs, so how you manage your load balancer with the telemetry you get from your monitoring tools to verify that the phase 1 of the Canary is good, right? I'm going to move to phase 2 and flip the load balancer and direct it to more traffic. How you synchronize those things is I think that's doable today. You might have scripted it yourself the last 3 or 4 years, but for a vendor like Harness, we treat load balancers as a first-class citizen, almost.
Hopefully the police is not coming for you. It sounds like you have a lot of activity in the background there. maybe a release gone bad.
Yeah.
The release police. That's an awesome.
Release police.
That's great.
So I love your continuous validation. And remind me, did I get this right? Continuous validation. Okay. So what we've been talking about, and this is something that I've been doing in the last couple of weeks, trying to kind of implement also, I call them build verifications. So, hey, Dynatrace, I'm pushing a build through the pipeline, and tell me what you think about that build by looking at key metrics and comparing it with the previous build, or maybe with something that is in production right now, and then basically act as a quality gate along the pipeline to either stop the pipeline there, push it back, or promote it into the next stage. And this is also thanks to your team, stuff that you guys built, pulling in Dynatrace metrics. And what I really love about, it seems we have a similar approach to this, is that we are strong believers in configuration as code, and not only configuration as in infrastructure as code, where we basically define what type of infrastructure we need, but basically everything is code, or everything is configuration. And we've seen this obviously from a pipeline perspective with, I think, I'm not sure who was the first one that came up with a pipeline definition as code, but I know Jenkins with their Jenkins 2.0 with their pipeline, you can configure the pipeline as configuration, and you store it in your Git repository or in your version control. And you guys do the same thing, right? You basically give all the power to whoever owns the pipeline, to the administrator, and everything can be configured through YAML, I believe in your case, including the quality gates and everything that you do underneath the hood. Is correct?
Yeah, everything. It's fine having a beautiful and a sexy, simple UI, but I think to get continuous delivery to scale and to make it kind of adopt it is really about allowing you to do everything as code. And so, yeah, there's a full YAML API, so you could literally just write an entire pipeline, a Canary workflow, a verification, a rollback. You can define all of that as code. It all gets version controlled. You can create templates. You can give it to different teams. That's the genesis of why we did configuration as code.
Cool. And now, do you have any suggestions for? I mean, I saw one of your blog posts where you were comparing Jenkins to Harness, and I thought that was really interesting because you said, and as you mentioned earlier, Jenkins for you is CI, and you take the artifact that drops out of CI, and then you are basically continuing with continuous delivery. And Jenkins for you is a first-class citizen. Now, do you have suggestions? Or what are the first steps when you approach somebody that is kind of on the verge of what we do continuous integration, and now we want to go to continuous delivery, and maybe they already started down the path of implementing something for themselves, like deployment tools and orchestration tools or scripts. What do you typically tell them to convince them that it's great that you're moving down the path, but maybe you want to stop investing in your own, build your own, but look at something that is available? What are the first steps to kind of get them confident enough that the stuff that is out there already from vendors is good enough and ready for prime time?
Yeah, I think customers and real stories about how customers are using it, like any vendor can come up with a great story or a pitch or buzzwords, but like real customer stories of how it's being used. And the reality is no single vendor takes all in continuous delivery or any market. CI/CD is a buzzword that I think is being bundled together. And as I kind of mentioned we see it as two different disciplines. All our customers use Jenkins. Harness uses Jenkins. And while we're playing, it is very different. Sure, you can go and build your own CD platform in Jenkins, but you're building it. Like, you still have to write the shell scripts. You have to all Jenkins is doing is orchestrating the scripts that you write. And so you have to build a Canary workflow. You have to build a verification, the integrations with Dynatrace or Splunk. You have to script the rollbacks. And so like that becomes a question of, do you want to build it or do you want to take it as a service? And so for us, it's about speed. Like, we think we can get a customer up and running in a few hours. And that's very, very different. We had one customer that kind of asked the question, how are you different to Jenkins? And my first question back to them was, how long did it take you to build your CD platform? And the response I got was, we're still building it. And it's no different to monitoring, right? If you're going to build your own monitoring platform, like, how long does it take to build? Or you could sign up at dynatrace.com, download an agent, and in 10 minutes you can see your application instrumented. Like, it's about speed. And that's the same thing, right? We think we can deliver value very, very quickly. And the proof's in the pudding these days with products. Like, people don't believe what vendors say. They go and test the product themselves. And that's the way it should be.
Yeah. And I think to add to this, how fast we can, both of our companies can help our customers see the value. It's not only how fast do we get there versus building it yourself, but also the maintainability. I think you mentioned this as well in the beginning, right? If you build it your own, then not only do you have to build it, but you also have to put effort in maintaining it. And maintaining means you have to maintain an environment that is constantly challenged with new technologies that it has to support. I mean, we at Dynatrace, we built our own pipelines, obviously leveraging some of the tools that are available, but in the end, we built a lot of the stuff ourselves, because when we started, there was simply nothing available. So we had to build it ourselves. Will we do it again? Probably not, because now the tools are much more mature out there. So I think this is another aspect that people have to think about, how to maintain it And in the end, it comes down to what we said earlier. You in the end, you want to benefit your business, and your business is, if you're in the tool business, then yes, stay there. But if you're not in the tool business, then probably you should focus on something else.
And I would add too, Andy, that a lot of these tools, ours and Harness and most of the new tools these days have a very rich API interface, both inbound and outbound. And if you want to take the effort that you would be putting into developing your own tools and instead put that effort into saying, hey, I have an API here. What can I do creatively at interface and enhance these tools or share the knowledge? If it's not something that, a lot of us, we build integrations just as Steve and his team did with us, but there's still so many things you can do with these API interfaces. Put your creativity there if you're going to spend some time trying to do some of your own coding.
Yeah, I mean, the APIs that you built on Dynatrace, I think it took our developers like 2 days, and that was it. So complete automation between deployment pipelines and deployment verification. And there's a bunch of other stuff we could do as well. And the kind of possibilities are almost somewhat endless, because I think in the past 10 years, a lot of DevOps vendors were trying to be the single tool or grab the mind share or be the single pane of glass or be the kind of control plane of everything in the DevOps ecosystem. Actually, the power is when you link them together and you let the products do what they do or they were designed to do well, and you have a best of breed ecosystem that plays nice with one another. For us to go back to a customer and was like, hey, you asked for Dynatrace, and a few weeks later, here it is. That was unheard of in the last 5 or 6 years, right? You'd have to get engineering teams to speak to one another and then prioritize it in the roadmaps. Or you could just publish an API and say, there you go, do it yourself.
Yeah. No, that's really fantastic. And again, kudos to your teams and thanks to our API teams that were they kind of foresaw what type of APIs were needed for these integration scenarios. Now I have 2 more questions for you. The first question is, where does continuous delivery end? That means you said you deliver into production and then you validate and make sure that everything is working correctly. Otherwise, you're scaling back or going back to the previous, take out the canary. But where does it really end? Meaning, when is your pipeline green? Can you explain that to me? Because the reason why I'm asking is, does self-healing fit into CD as well? Something that in case something in an hour or in a day happens, is this something that you see in continuous delivery, or is this a separate activity?
I think it's linked. So we have two things. One is, I'd say, where does continuous delivery end? I think it ends with a verification in production. So what is success for production? And a big thing that I think a lot of customers need to do is, what is a successful deployment? And almost write down on a whiteboard, what are the things that need to happen for a deployment to be successful? And so business KPIs, application KPIs, customer KPIs, how do you know whether things are green or things are red? And that's the first thing. The second thing is we have something called a failure strategy. And so if things do fail or the verification fails, how do you handle that? And so the self-healing part of continuous delivery, I think it's linked, right? It's something's bad's happening or the deployment's failing. Now what do I do? And having APIs to almost orchestrate, whether it's a rollback, whether it's just manually notifying someone, or even if it's running a script or it's communicating with another tool, to self-heal. I think it's all linked. I don't think continuous delivery stops. I think you should always look at what was this are my deployments getting better? Is the business getting better or is it getting worse? Or are things the same? I think it's, as the name implies, right? It's continuous, and until things are peaked or plateaued, you've always got work to do. So I guess it's 2 things, what is success, and if things fail, how do we handle it and recover from that failure?
Mm-hmm. Cool. And the second question that I have, and we see, so we just came out of our Perform conference, and we had a couple of big partners there. For instance, Red Hat was there, where we're partnering with them on OpenShift. We also had Pivotal there. And obviously, these are all partners of ours that are selling their platforms to our joint customers, and their platforms also include at least best practices on how to do continuous delivery. Are you guys also playing with these platforms, even knowing that? If I'm looking at Pivotal, for instance, I think they have Concourse as their pipeline tool. Is this something that you also integrate with, or that you think of integrating with? Because obviously you have a lot of expertise in that area.
Yes. So right now we're actually building support for Pivotal Cloud Foundry and OpenShift. So yes is the short answer. Again, a lot of the platform as a service providers do provide some kind of deployment APIs and kind of tooling. Where we're really playing is to keep deployment consistent, right, across the different clouds, across the different applications. Similar to what Dynatrace does, right, where you want the same monitoring tool across the different clouds and the different applications. Some customers might use a certain tool in one environment, but on the whole, they want a standardized approach for deployment, or they want a standardized approach for monitoring. And in a lot of aspects as well, enterprises, they don't put their eggs in one basket. And so they'll always pick at least one or two vendors or solutions in each area so that they're not tied down. So we complement, but again, it's different cloud providers have different tooling. So as another example, we have support for AWS Code Deploy. So if you're already using Code Deploy to do deployments, you can simply wrap Harness around that. And then we can add all of the additional things like verification and secrets management and rollback as part of it as well. So yeah,
cool.
We'll integrate where we can, for sure.
Yeah. Perfect. Brian, shall we start the summarizer?
So what? Man, it's been a long time. Hi, Andy. Shall we summon the summarator?
Let's do it.
Let's summon the summarator.
And we also have to do the release police. That's a new song that's going to be a new song by Cheap Trick. They're going to come back and.
So what I took away from this session today, I believe we are beyond the time where we all need to build our own tooling to solve the same problem the 500th time. Even though we've been obviously glorifying the people that have done this on stage at different events, I think we're past that, and we should focus on what the real thing is, why we go to work every day, which is building better services for our customers and delivering that service faster than our competition. So a big, maybe a challenge for people out there, next time when you are proposing a talk to one of the DevOps conferences or any other conferences out there, don't try to show them what cool things you built, but actually what the underlying business benefit is that you achieved and what the investment was. I think that's a cool thing. Now, I also learned a lot about the difference between CI, CD, and how long, where CD kind of ends. I really like, Stephen, what you guys built at Harness. Thanks for building the integration with Dynatrace, and I'm sure we will obviously continue sharpening that integration. We had a discussion last week, and I know there's a lot of other use cases we would love to implement. So please also forward also the thanks to your team that built it, and thanks for the feedback. But other than that, I think we are finally at a stage where we can really say another problem most likely solved. We make things like monitoring and continuous delivery available to the masses because we focus on that. And so you guys can focus on the stuff that is really important, which is building better services for your end users. That's it from my side.
Excellent, Andy. The only thing I want to add is that, although I feel like I was coming down hard on anybody who's attempting to build their own. I don't mean it in that way. You can roll your own all you want. You're not, probably not this unicorn you might think you are. And I think you really should take a look at what tools are out there, because you can save a lot of time. However, I do think it is still important, though, for people to look at maybe not recreating the same things that have been created before, but we still need those innovators. Obviously, as when we had I think the APM wars are still going on, right? But as the APM wars were going on, that pushed us all, the companies at least, to innovate more. I think with the new things like maybe Harness and other companies going after the same thing, they will do some innovation. Obviously, that's just part of of business. But I still think we need regular people looking at what's out there, and instead of trying to recreate what's already been done, find something new or find a gap, because that's how all this stuff started in the first place. So again, going back to, if I can go back 2 Performs ago, when if I don't know if you recall, Andy, when Josh McKenty was talking about what's Internet 3.0 or whatever. It's like when I don't have to care about it anymore, when I don't even have to think about it anymore. Mm-hmm. Same thing with the tooling kind of idea. Like if I need to get into a CD situation, I don't care how it's done, make that done so I can continue with what I need to do. Let's let that happen. I think it's time. I think we're past the early adopters in this, and it's time to move on with what we can move on and spend time either innovating with new ideas or, as I was saying, innovate with how we can make these different tools talk to each other and do cool things via their APIs. Steve, any last thoughts on your side? Anything you want to get off your chest before we wrap up?
No, I think the key thing for me is I think APIs are driving the integrations and making the ecosystems more powerful. I think that's the big thing. When you use APIs, everyone wins. The customer wins, the partners win, the vendors win. And I think building things on your own later on down the line where you need to scale or you need to change things, it often becomes very, very difficult. And so a little bit of research before you build stuff sometimes can pay a bit of dividend. And pick the right solution. It doesn't have to be buying it. It can be building it, but just pick the right solution for the right problem.
Right. What's your end goal?
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Steve. We really appreciate you coming on. You have, I guess you're obviously on Twitter. What's your Twitter handle?
Burton Says.
Burton Says. There you go. And you have your blog on harness.io. Any other plugs you want to go ahead and plug?
I'm still figuring out whether I need to get a superhero costume. Like I'm thinking like a giant evil canary or something like that. So if you've got any ideas, let me know.
We did not want to mention Ant-Man on purpose, but now you brought it up. So
I just said a canary costume. I didn't say.
You like the cosplay. That's all right.
Who doesn't? I mean, if you want to, honestly, if you haven't tried it, you've got to get a superhero costume. It's one of life's hidden secrets.
But there's also the whole furries movement too. That's a whole different topic. That's got nothing to do with this.
Taking it way too far.
Yeah.
But I can't encourage it enough.
Excellent. Anything else from you, Andy?
No, not really. Just thanks again for this great partnership. And if any topics come up in the future that we should enlighten our listeners, then just let us know. We will are happy to have you back on the show. And for everybody else out there that is listening, if you have any topics or if you want to challenge the stuff that we say here, because you say, well, these are just 2 tool vendors that are just trying to sell their tools, then happy to take you on the show and then let's discuss this.
Yes. And I'd also love for anybody to come up with a cover version of Release Police done to Cheap Trick Stream Police. Please send that over if you can create one for us.
Perfect.
Anyway, thank you all.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.